there is a part of you that has to die. You can't be a not person. A lot of times people say, well, okay, I'll just not be that anymore, right? I'm just a not that. You have to fill that part of you with something good. We're going to be talking about addiction and how breathwork comes in play. Today, I want to thank the sponsor of this channel, MagicMind. If you've been watching my recent episodes, you might have noticed I've been using quite a bit of MagicMind, and I have not had my MagicMind for the day. I saved it for just this occasion. So cheers. So yeah, we're talking about addiction, and this is something that sadly enough, I have a lot of experience with. So with my addiction, I tried to quit a lot of times, but I was at the point where if I were to suddenly stop using this substance, I would have insane physical reactions. And this is, very common whenever a person has a really severe addiction. And so I would try, and then I would relapse. And the thing is, I would never actually make it beyond like a day. It was like every single day. And you don't really, it's hard to understand unless you've been there. This is one of those things where it really is difficult to understand, but I could not go a day without. And even just going like a morning without was a lot to ask. It was as soon as I woke up, I knew I needed to, okay, I've got to get this into my system. And then, okay, now I can live life. Of course, it manifests its way into other parts of your life that you don't see at the time. Ultimately, you become so dependent that you almost wonder what you would be like. You almost wonder, who would I be without this substance? What would life even be? How would that even be possible? There is, when you have an addiction, and it's not necessarily just chemical addiction. Okay, this is my case, but maybe it's a gambling addiction. Maybe it's a porn addiction. Maybe it's, who knows what addiction that you have. Okay, it does not matter. What has happened is that a part of your unconscious self has made that, has at least determined that is some kind of a behavior that is important. And ultimately, one of the useful ways I like to look at it is basically saying there is a part of you that has to die. Okay. So there is a part of you that is the addicted part. Okay. So there's a part of who you are that you actually have to die. It's like, okay, this little part of me, I have to, and it's not just this little cute little part of me. It's this very strong part of me. I have to smother, with the pillow or do something. I have to kill that part of myself. That part of myself has to die, and it doesn't want to die. And it's going to do everything it can to survive, just like anything would, right? Oh man, it's going to, okay. And so that is a difficult struggle. But then I think when it comes to addiction, I think we're tricked into believing that once I kill that thing, okay, awesome, I'm done. And that's not it. You can't just walk around as a not addict, right? You can't be a not person. A lot of times people say, well, okay, I'll just not be that anymore, right? I'm just a not that. You have to fill that part of you with something good. If you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe. We talk about all sorts of stuff here, but specifically we focus on breathwork, longevity, and mental health, mental fitness, stress, anxiety, all those things that get on us. And then, hey, you know what? We also have a lot of fun. You have to let something be born, and that should be something that you're proud of. So you need to allow yourself to become someone you're proud of. And that is really, really important. And there's a lot of people out there like, hey, you should be proud of yourself because you've quit this thing. I mean, and let me just be blunt, okay? If you're proud of yourself, yes, immediately after quitting the thing, it's a huge relief, and you should be proud of yourself. But I don't really feel like that is, I feel like clapping for a person for not wasting themselves on drugs is like clapping for for a grown up for not like crapping your pants every day. Like that's literally what you're doing. If you're allowing that addiction to go forward, you're doing something that you shouldn't. You should know better. Like it should not be something that you're doing. Okay. If the only thing you're proud about is that you don't do that thing, yeah, it's going to be a real struggle. It's the classic don't think of a red car, right? You're always thinking about it. And the thing is, something that's important to understand about addiction, when we talk about addiction, this is something that's hijacking your natural processes, the natural brain chemistry. You're hijacking that. And you're allowing, and there's an enormous amount of dopamine that's trying to reinforce that behavior. However, if you can do things that are actually productive, that is you tapping into the naturally beneficial aspect of the dopamine system. So whenever you're doing things that make you feel proud about yourself, whenever you do things that improve your life, where you're building a skill, you're making progress in life, you're actually using dopamine in the way that it was originally supposed to be used. And so you're reinforcing positive brain chemistry while you're trying to get rid of that negative brain chemistry. Now, not everybody's going to be in the same situation as me. I just want to repeat that. But this was how it worked for me. Ultimately, there's a lot of reasons why it's very difficult at the beginning. So your nervous system is stuck in the state of what we call the sympathetic dominant state, or the state of fight or flight. So when this happens, you can't relax. And so one of the most common issues of recovery is getting sleep. And the thing is, if you don't sleep well, your emotions are just really going haywire. You have issues with your emotions. And so that affects how your interpersonal relationships happen. And then suddenly there's all these weird things, and dealing with people is different. Dealing with situations is different. Everything is different, and everything is incredibly anxiety inducing. And so this is why I wish I would have had breathwork at the time. And this is why I teach breathwork at the clinics. I did create an online breathwork course for people who are recovering from addiction. And this is assuming that you're either in a program where there's supervision, or it's assuming that you have quit the drug and that you're trying to deal with life afterwards. This is not like, hey, this is all the steps to take. This is just the breathwork portion. Because what happens is, as you are recovering from any kind of addiction, whether it is chemical or psychological or anything, there is a part of your nervous system, a part of your unconscious self that is really unnerved by this, pun intended. And so this is something where you've got a lot of a heightened state of fight or flight. You've got a lot of sympathetic dominance, and you have to learn how to regulate your nervous system on your own, because you've had this chemical doing it for you. And this is where I see, sadly enough, a lot of breath work, a lot of people in breath work make it seem as though, okay, what you need to do is this one style of breath work, and then just blow your mind, and then suddenly you will expunge all of that. It's just not going to be in there anymore. It's as if, or it's like some kind of a toxin cleanse or something like that. And that's not really what's happening here. What is really happening is that your nervous system is trying to learn how to operate in a world after it has been hijacked by drugs or by whatever you're addicted to, that has offered the comfort or control that you've looked for so long. You got to understand, when it comes to controlling the way we feel, that is drug addiction behavior. And so when it comes to breath work, we're like, well, wait a minute, I'm trying to control the way I feel. Well, in reality, what you're trying to do with breath work is it's not necessarily control. You're trying to work with your natural physiology. When you have a drug that you're dependent on, you're trying to control everything. You're saying, I'm not going to work with you, I'm going to drug you. But when you work with your breath, you're saying, okay, there's an unconscious part of me that's trying to help me survive. It's trying to help me thrive and survive. I mean, this is the essence of the language of breath philosophy. If you want to know more about that, go to my website, or you can go to the website, languageofbreathcollective.com. There's a whole course on this now. But ultimately, you've got an unconscious part of yourself that is very good at picking up patterns. It's very good at habit creation and pattern and basically building routines. But it's hard to get that part of your unconscious self to get out of that state. And when you're out of these habits and routines, your unconscious self is going to say, no, this is what we do. And it's going to freak you out on an unconscious level if you're not doing these things. And so you used to get all this dopamine and stuff from the drug. Now you need to do it with actions. So you're trying to do actions that build a positive life, and that freaks out your nervous system because everything's different. So now what we have to do is learn, okay, how do I breathe in just everyday life? Okay. It's not as simple as I'm just going to sit there and huff and puff and then my addiction goes away or everything's fixed and better. There are times, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, when that is an appropriate response to do. But the vast majority of recovery when it comes to breath work is understanding how to take this breath you're taking right now, how to take the next breath, and how to build a positive rapport with the unconscious part of you that you don't have conscious access to, but that is determining your emotional state, that's determining your physiological expression, like hormones, all these things like adrenaline, cortisol, all of the things that come into play whenever the unconscious part of you is unsure and it's like, hey man, I think we're in trouble here. This is out of the normal. So how to do this. And if you go to my website, jessecoomer.com, I developed a breathwork course called Recovery Breath. It's absolutely free if you can't afford it. Yes, there are payment options on there as well. And I will remind you, because it's true, not because I'm trying to make money off of this, but ultimately, if you pay for something consciously, or at least on an unconscious level, you will value it and you're more likely to complete it and use it in your life. If it's free, you probably won't. This is what I give whenever I go talk at the clinic about breath work and addiction, because I feel so passionately about helping people like this. So ultimately, learning breath work is the thing that can help you get a better handle and to regulate your nervous system so that you can do positive actions, because it is your positive actions that will lead you to the life that you want to live and away from going back to drugs, to alcohol, to whatever it is that you were addicted to. So you move forward, you don't look back. Okay. And to do that, you have to be in the right, ultimately, you're going to be able to do that easier, I should say, and more effectively if you're in the right state, the right nervous state with your nervous system. So ultimately, there are some times whenever you've got a craving, okay, I need to do something that's going to hit me really hard. And in the Recovery Breath course, I actually have a guided track specifically for that. And I want to thank my Patreon club, because the only reason I could ever afford to do this and have a free option is because there is a Patreon club that people support me.